Hi everyone, welcome back again to another beautiful tutorial with Eco Designs to Fit. My name is Chiwendo, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to cut and sew this beautiful shirt dress with a drawstring by the side. The one on the screen, I made it with a crepe fabric, but in today's tutorial I'm going to be repeating the same thing with a Duchess fabric. What I have on the table is 2.5 yards of Duchess. I folded my fabric into two, and I folded with the biggest part of my measurement for some inches. I folded my fabric on the table, and I'm going to be cutting out the back first. So from the top of my fabric, I came down by 2 inches. And I'm going to make it into a horizontal line. Now this automatically becomes my shoulder points. Now I'm going to place my tape on the shoulder point and mark down to the bust point 10 inches. Still leaving my tape right there. I'm going to mark down to the waistline 18 inches and then to the hip points 25 inches. I'm also going to mark down to the length of my shirts. Okay, so here I made use of 41.5 inches. The length of my actual shirt dress is 39 inches, but because we're going to be adding a drawstring by the side, I extended it and used 41.5 inches. So I'm going to draw my lines across just like this, and then after this I'm going to move over to the shoulder points, and then from the center fold I'm going to divide my shoulder into two. So my shoulder is 15 divided by 2, and I'm going to add half an inch for sewing allowance. So I marked down 18 inches, and from there I came down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. And after that I'm going to place my tape and mark the chest line. So for my chest line, I'll divide my bust circumference by 6 and add 1.5 inches. Now after that, you can see I have my armhole depth. Now I'm going to move over to the shoulder line again and marking 2.5 inches for my neck width for the back, and then for the depth of my neckline for the back I'm going to use half an inch. Now you guys, this is because I'm marking this out on my fabric. Okay, so by the time I sew in my collar, all this is going to go down with half an inch. Okay, so the depth becomes 1 inch and the width becomes 3 inches. I hope you guys understand. Now I connected my shoulder slope to the neck width, and the next thing I'm going to do is divide my armhole depth into 2 and mark the middle. Now after this I'm going to move over to the chest line and divide my bust circumference by 4, mark it down and add 1.5 inches for ease allowance because this is a shift gown. Okay, and then add 1 inch for sewing allowance. I'll move over to the waistline, divide my waist circumference by 4, mark it down, add 1.5 inches for ease, and then 1 inch for sewing allowance. I'll move over to the hip, divide my hip circumference by 4, mark it down, add 1.5 inches for ease, and then 1 inch for sewing allowance. Now I'm going to extend what I have on the hip line to the hemline, as you can see. And then the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and connect all these points together. So guys, as you can see, it seems as though my lines are too pointy, so I'm going to use my curve to blend it because we don't need any form of sharp curve. Okay, so if you have any form of sharp curve, go ahead and blend it up. Now after that I'm going to connect my armhole line, can you see? And then you guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is go ahead and move over to the shoulder line. Okay, now because this is a shirt and our shirt always comes with back come down shoulder, so I'll be adding up 1.5 inches to the back. Okay, you're still going to understand why I did this, but for now please follow what I am doing. So I'm going to have to extend this by 1.5 inches. Reason is because by the time I want to cut out the fronts, I am to remove 1 inch from the front and add it up to the back. And now, instead of adding up just this 1 inch, you know I'm cutting on fabric, and we are going to be needing half an inch for joining the shoulders together. So I'm going to be adding up 1.5 inches. So this 1.5 inches is 1 inch that I'm supposed to remove from the front and add to the back, plus half an inch for sewing allowance. Now guys, as you can see, I am done cutting out the back, so we are going to move over to the front. I've folded another fabric, okay, and it's been folded into two. So first of all, I'm going to mark out the horizontal line, and then from the center fold, I'm going to come in by 2.5 inches for my bottom plackets, which I've already did off camera. Okay, I'm just trying to show you how I did that so you can see the line. And I also went ahead off camera to iron the line so that I'll be able to fold it inward. Okay, so guys, I'm going to have to cut off my horizontal line so that I'll have a straight line. And you guys, after that becomes my starting point. Now I'm going to fold the bottom placket inward just like this, and then use my pins to hold it in place, okay, just to make sure that it remains in place while I am cutting this out. Now after this, I'm going to have to bring in the back and then make sure that I align it properly with the center of the front. Okay, so you can see the center of the back should be matching up with the center of the front, and then the starting point of the back should be matching up with the starting point of the back. Can you see? So you guys, I am done matching it up. Now from the starting point, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and then I'm going to divide my armhole depth into two and mark the middle. Now after that, I'm going to have to cut off the armhole. Okay, now remember, this is my back armhole that I'm still following. I'm still going to mark out my front armhole. So let's go ahead and cut out the shape. Okay, so I'm following the shape of my back to cut out the shape of the front. Now after this guys, I'm going to have to divide the hemline into two. Okay, I just want to locate the middle of my down parts, and then from the side I'm going to go up by 4 inches. Now I'm doing this because I want to have like a curve right by the side of my shirts. Can you see what I'm doing? So after this, I'm going to have to trim it off. So guys, you can see what the down part looks like. Now we are going to move over to the upper part again, and then I'm going to have to locate the shoulder slope. Okay, so I'm just going to raise up the back and mark out my shoulder slope in front, and then remove the back piece. Now after this, I'm going to, for my front armhole, come in by half an inch, and then from the center folds, I'm going to mark out my neck width and also mark out my neck depth for the front. And as you can see, I made use of 2.5 inches for both the neck depth and the neck width. Now I'm going to have to connect these points together and then connect my shoulder slope. Now after this, I'll go ahead and cut out my neckline. And then cut out my shoulder slope, and also cut out my armhole. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to have to use my curve to connect my armhole line just like this, and then cut it out. So now you can see I have my front armhole. So guys, remember for the back, I added 1.5 inches, and I told you guys I'm supposed to remove 1 inch from the front and add it up to the back. Okay, can you see what I'm showing you now? Because I am cutting on my fabric, okay, and I will be needing half an inch for shoulder sewing allowance. So instead of removing this 1 inch, I'm going to remove just half an inch. So from the slope, I'm going to remove half an inch, just like this, and then connect it together. Now I'm going to use my scissors and cut this out. So guys, that is that for our shoulder. Okay, so by the time I stitch the two shoulders together, I'll be having a come down shoulder for the shirts. So I am done with the front. Next, I'm going to have to open up my button placket, because you know it's been folded into two. Okay, and I pinned it inwards. So you can see this is what the come down shoulder looks like. Now I'm going to remove the back, okay, and then I'm going to have to open up the front slits. So first of all, I'm going to remove my pins. I'll go ahead and open up my center fold so that I'll have 2 pieces for the fronts. Now I have my 2 pieces for the fronts. I'm going to fold in my bottom placket, but before that I'll add fusible interface to make it firm. So I'll fold in half an inch first, and after that I'll fold the remaining to touch the 2.5 inches line. So I am done doing that, and this is what I have. As you can see, I'm just trying to show you what I have right there. So guys, these are my 2 pieces for the front. So I'm going to have to move over to my sewing machine and stitch using a straight stitch. Okay, so after stitching the bottom plackets, this is what I have. Now you can see I'm going to have to cut off the excess on the neckline. So please, you can see I did not cut off the excess on the neckline before stitching the bottom plackets. So I am done cutting it off. Now I'm going to have to measure my neckline so that we cut out the collar. I am trying to measure my neckline. After measuring this, I had 17 inches. Now this 17 inches, I'm going to divide it into 2, use it to cut out my collar. I have a detailed tutorial on how to cut out your collar, so please go check it out. Now I'm going to divide my collar into 2 and mark out the middle. Okay, so I notch the middle, and equally I'm going to fold my main fabric into 2 and then notch the middle. So now after this, I'm going to turn the back of my dress and then placing the front of my collar on it, match it up, use my pin to hold it in place. So I'm going to match up the middle of my collar to the middle of my dress, and then I'm going to match up the end of the collar to the side of the shirts. Okay, so I'm going to pin it up just like this. After doing that for one side, I'll repeat the same thing for this other side, and I'll move over to my stitching machine, stitch using half an inch, and then top stitch to the front. Okay, so here is my collar. I am done, and this is what the shirt is looking like for now. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my pieces, which I'm going to use for my loop, okay, for the side drawstring. Now this is what my side seam looks like. I've gone ahead to open it up, and you can see I've equally weaved the rough edges. Please endeavor to iron it properly so that the seams will open very well. And then from the end of my shirts, the down part of my shirt, I would go up by 17 inches. That is where I want my drawstring to start. Okay, so I'll repeat the same thing to the other side and also make my mark. Now after that, I'm going to bring in my pieces, which I'm going to use for my rope. Okay, so here is the pieces. It is 1.5 inches height, and the length is just long enough for me to have my drawstring. Okay, so I am done sewing that, and I need 2 pieces for each of the side. Okay, so I'm going to divide it into 2 so that I'll have 4 pieces. Now the next thing I'm going to do is bring it and then sew into my dress. Okay, so guys, I will sew in my loop in between my seam allowance. I'm going to insert it just like this, use my pin to hold it in place. Now after doing this for one side, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Please make sure that the tip of this your loop is not what you place on that line. Okay, remove about half an inch or 1 inch before you stitch it up. I hope you guys understand me. So I'm going to go hold it in my tie stitch just like this, and then push the other part of the loops inward, and then hold the side of the seam allowance with a tight stitch on both sides. Now I'm going to repeat the same thing to the other side, exactly the same thing. So I'll bring in my loop. You can see, so I removed about half an inch before placing in my loop on that line. I don't know if you understand me. Hold it down with my pins. I'll repeat the same thing to the other sides. Hold it down with my pins. I'll move over to my sewing machine right now and then stitch down using a tie stitch. So guys, you can see it is neatly finished. Now I'm going to pull my drawstring. All you have to do is hold the 2 loops and then you push. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. After pushing it upwards, I will tie it down. It all depends on what you want. If you want, you can actually leave it this way. That way your shirt dress will go down a bit. So it depends on how you want to pull it. If you want to make it very full, you go ahead and gather it more. But if you want it loose, you gather it as you want. I am done with that part of the main bodies, and I also went ahead to cut out my basic sleeve off camera. The length of this sleeve is 27 inches. It's meant to be 24 inches, but because we are adding an elastic, I made it 27 inches. I weaved the rough edges at the down part and folded it in. Now from the down part, I'm going to go up by 4 inches, and this is where I'm going to be inserting my elastic. So I've marked it out for one part of the sleeve. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other part of the sleeve. Now after doing this, I'll go ahead and bring my elastic. Okay, here is my black elastic. So the length of the elastic is my round wrist measurement, which is 8. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew it in like this. You can see as I sew, I'm going to stretch it out. Okay, so I'll go and do that on both sleeves, and after that I will join the side seam and then fix it into my shirt dress. Okay, so I am done joining the elastic, and I've also fixed it into my main dress. So guys, this is what we have. I'll now go ahead and input my buttonhole and fixing my button. Okay, so you guys, you can see this is how to make this beautiful shirt dress with your drawstring. It is very simple, and I hope you guys find value in this tutorial. If you do, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Here is the dress on the mannequin. Please share this tutorial so that more people can get to see it, and you want to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done yet. Bye.